Today we are in section 5.3 and we are talking about monomial factors of polynomials. Sounds kind of confusing, but in short, yesterday whenever we were dividing, we had one term divided by one term. Today we are dividing multiple terms by one term. So instead of just having one thing in the numerator, it's going to have two or three terms. Okay? To divide multiple terms by one term, we're going to need this rule that I stole from my cooperating teacher at Carroll called the butterfly rule. What the butterfly rule tells me is if I have A plus B over C, so notice I have two terms in the numerator and just one in the denominator. Yesterday it was just A over C or it was just B over C. So now I have two terms in my numerator. So if I want to divide this, I have to take A and divide it by C. And then I have to take B and divide it by C. Notice that you can draw little antennas. It looks like a butterfly. Use your imagination. And the other thing that I want to point out, since this was A plus B, this is A over C plus B over C. If this was a subtraction sign, that would be a subtraction sign.
That looks more like a butterfly than that.
Okay. Yes. Okay. These examples start out pretty easy. Let's simplify 16y minus 12 over 2. To use our butterfly rule, it means I need to divide each piece in my numerator by my denominator. So that means I'm going to break this out into 16y over 2, and this time, what is my sign in the middle? It's a subtraction, so I'm going to subtract 12 over 2, and then you're going to simplify both of your fractions. What is 16y over 2? 8y. What is 12 over 2? 6. So your answer would be 8y minus 6. You cannot solve this because you don't know what that's equal to. All right, keep moving forward. Let's try 28 PQ minus 35P. And we're going to divide it by 7P. Okay, so we're going to use our butterfly rule. I have to take each piece in my numerator and divide it by my denominator. So that means I need to take 28 PQ divided by 7P. Since I'm subtracting in my numerator, I'm going to subtract my fractions. And I'm going to subtract 35P by 7P. Okay, when I simplify my two fractions, now I have a couple of different variables. For my first fraction, 28PQ over 7P, look at your numbers first. 28 over 7 gives you 4. I have a P over a P. What happens to my P's? They cancel out. What else am I left with? A Q. So my first fraction just turns out to be 4Q. For my second fraction, I have a 35P over 7P. What does that give me? Minus 5. So I have 4Q minus 5. Okay, I'm going to give you guys one to try. Okay, let's do 8a squared b c squared plus 12a b c squared. Sorry, we're going to add, so a b squared, c squared. So squareds on both the b's and the c's. Divided by 4a b c. All right, Ethan's going to work this one out for us. So you have two things that you need to divide by the denominator. So he started off at 8a squared bc squared divided by 4abc. So we are going to have a fun looking little wings on my butterfly here. And whenever you divide that first term by your denominator, you get 2. You have a squared over a, which leaves you with an a. You have an b over b, so the b's cancel out. Then you have c squared over c, which leaves you with a c. Then I need to divide my second term by my denominator. So if you look just at your numbers, I have 12 over 4, which gives me a 3. And then I have an a over a, so the a's cancel out. I have b squared over b, which just leaves me with 1b. Then I have c squared over c, which leaves me with a c. So your final answer should be 2ac plus 3bc. Very good. Thank you, Ethan. All right, let's keep moving forward. What if I have 4x to the 5th minus 24x to the 3rd y plus 10x squared y squared all over a negative 2x squared? There's two things different about this one. First off, on all the other examples, I divided 2 terms by 1 terms. How is this one different? There's 3 terms in the numerator. Do you think I'm going to do it very differently?
Nope.
No. Except this time, your butterfly just kind of has maybe 3 wings, or it has a body. There we go. Okay.
It looks like a hot dog.
Okay, now also you may notice that my denominator is negative. I haven't dealt with a negative denominator yet. Don't worry, you just have to think carefully about your integer rules. Let's start doing this one kind of in our head. So for my first term, I have 4x to the 5th over negative 2x squared. Will that be positive or negative? Okay, it's going to be negative. 4 over 2 gives me 2. I have x to the 5th over x squared.
It's x to the 3rd.
X to the 3rd. For my middle term, I have a negative over a negative, which gives me a positive. 24 over 2 gives me 12. I have x to the 3rd over x squared. X. And what about that y? Just tack it on. And then for my last one, I have a positive divided by a negative.
So it's a negative.
A negative, and I have 10 over 2. And I have x squared over x squared. Cancel out. But the only thing I have left is a y squared.
That's easy.
All right, I'm going to give you guys one to try with your 3 terms. Try 27r to the 3rd minus 18r squared minus 36r all over negative 9r. All right, Connor's going to work this one out for us. Once again, we have 3 terms divided by 1 term, so I need to take all 3 of those terms and divide it by my denominator. For that first term, when I take 27r to the 3rd over negative 9r, I first notice that I have a positive divided by a negative, which gives me a negative answer. 27 over 9 gives me 3. R to the 3rd over r gives me r squared. For my middle term, I have a negative divided by a negative. And we all know a negative divided by a negative gives me a positive. 18 over 9 gives me 2. And then I have r squared over r, which leaves me with an r. And my last term, once again, I have a negative divided by a negative, which gives me a positive. And 36 divided by 9 gives me 4. And finally, r divided by r cancels out.
Got it.
Yay.